Hi, this is Nathan, your illustrious Out for Blood co-host, with a few bits of housekeeping to get out of the way before we start this month's installment. This is our first special episode, and although we've been on a wacky release schedule so far, from here on out we'll be releasing a new episode on the first Friday of every month. And if that's not enough to satiate your bloodlust, we will also be releasing blog content to all our patrons on a roughly bi-weekly schedule. Our next episode will be on Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter. This month's episode features some of our friends as special guests, and things got a little rowdy, so it's edited pretty heavily for length and relevancy, but there were some gems we couldn't part with. So as a gift to anyone who would like to become a patron at the $5 level or up, you'll get exclusive access to a blooper reel of this episode. Without further ado, please enjoy our tantalizing insights of Dracula the Musical. Good evening. And welcome to Out for Blood. I'm your host, Nathan.
And I'm Julie, and we're here with our two special guests.
My name is Sally. I'm guest hosting I Know Julie from work, and she was kind enough to let me be on her podcast with her, Nathan, with this special musical experience that we just had. And if you like what I have to say, you can check out my other podcast, Everybody Hates Rand, that I host with my good friend Emily Jushaw. Is a Wheel of Time podcast where we read couple chapters each week and talk about the book. We both have a literary background, and we try to bring some of that, but mostly a lot of other nonsense. So that's me.
That's Sally.
Plugging it.
Go listen to our podcast, and we also have
Gethin, veteran podcaster.
No, Gethin is just a kid from work who likes yo-yos.
Yeah, B negative blood type, 6'3". 172 pounds, I think. The last check.
Is that actually your blood type?
Yeah, B negative.
I wish I knew my blood type.
I don't know
That'd
my
be such
blood
a great
type
intro
either.
for a
How many
vampire
positives?
podcast.
Yeah.
I'm
we should
negative
add that.
because I'm always so negative about
I
that.
don't think that has
Do you
to
remember
bear on
that?
your
Or is
personality.
that like the doctor's like, this is a negative
No, that's how
asshole?
I remembered it.
Be negative.
Be negative, Gethin, please.
I feel like my parents have told me and I forget on the reg.
I have never been.
You never done it?
I don't even know how to find out.
You
I
test
think
it.
you go to a doctor. I can't be
Or a high
positive.
school
I
class
can't
on a
be
certain day.
positive.
Do you think the different blood types have different flavors for vampires?
Like fruit punch.
Yeah, like
Ooh.
O is like mystery flavored. That's universal.
It's like when you have whatever the mystery flavor of Dum Dums, and it's like the last
yeah.
two flavors like combined. That's what it's like.
Yeah, it's just the shit flavor.
Pineapple
Maybe
and
it's
root
just
beer
like
mixed
Cheerios.
together.
It's the spitball
Do you get it?
flavor. It's the
I get
spittoon.
it.
It's a spittoon.
Correct.
Okay.
Okay.
Anyway.
So go ahead.
So tonight, the four of us all experienced a sordid affair with the stage creatures of the night.
Because we had the rare privilege of seeing a vampire musical in the flesh.
We all went and saw Dracula the Musical, which premiered on Broadway in 2004. Music by Frank Wildhorn, if that means anything to you.
Probably not.
And book and lyrics by Don Black and Christopher Hampton. More recently performed, however, by our local university theater department.
We went in blind.
Really was unexpected on every level.
Yeah.
And I walked in and people were like barking at me.
Oh my god.
The like pre-play performance.
Yeah, I think we all thought they were like stagehands, like
Yeah.
prepping the
warming
stage or
up.
I
whatever.
think they were. Like, some of them were,
Well,
though. Like, they came out at the end, and one of them was, like, dressed like a vampire. Stagehand.
That
Just
is
wanted to
true.
be
That was a
Yeah.
personal choice.
Yeah.
It
It
really
was.
was. In
Yeah.
solidarity with the performers.
Yeah.
And like saying that they were dressed as vampires is kind of not completely accurate. They were more dressed like 2003 Hot Topic, like
Yes.
like mall rats.
Yeah, which
They're
I kind of love. Because if you're going with the idea of it's like Dracula's gothic literature, we take goth in the other sense and just like raid a hot
Yeah.
topic, and these are our vampires.
Yeah.
So that was kind of fun.
Like JoJo's Bizarre Adventure.
Yeah,
haircuts.
yeah.
This
The
is
costume
a lot
design
of
Giant
JoJo.
hair.
had very anime vibes.
Yeah.
It was like a weird energy to bring to Dracula.
Yeah, it felt good.
It did.
felt really
It felt
good.
right.
It
It
felt
felt right.
okay until Dracula changed his wig.
Because he started with this like white wig that
Yeah.
was tall but also long,
Yeah.
and it like was sort of working for me.
Yeah.
And then he like comes to London and is rejuvenated, and it's back to like his natural hair color, and it just fell apart.
It really did.
It no longer worked.
Both of the wigs had these like floppy bangs that like hung in his face in a really horrible way that like you couldn't even see his eyes ever, and then they just like flopped. They like, I don't even know. It looked like there was like a breeze blowing through them at all time, and they were just
They looked
so
like
distracting.
Oh man, the like sideburn bang things in anime that are all long.
They're like
rough.
little. Yeah,
Oh,
it was,
yeah.
and he was in like full corny like Halloween Dracula makeup.
I really didn't understand that choice. I was like, why does he need to have makeup on? He's like so aesthetically differentiated from everybody else
I think
by
it's,
nature of the cape. Like no one else is
like,
wearing a fucking cape.
It was like,
oh sorry, is this a swearing podcast?
yes. You're good.
Fuck.
This is not a family-friendly vampire podcast.
It's got that E rating.
We only have one more fuck.
You
R-rated.
took it.
I'm sorry.
You took it away from me.
Damn it.
That's okay.
But yeah, it wasn't just a cape. It was like a wet look cape. It was like
I liked his cape.
shiny. It
I
was
don't
no,
know.
it was amazing. And the like
It was
the
probably
like
best
patent
part.
leather thigh-high boots.
Yeah.
That just
like-
blended into the pants.
I know.
Almost seamlessly. It took until like
Yeah,
the
I
last
I didn't even
singing
know until
act.
now.
They were amazing.
Yeah, no, I
Yeah,
thought they
it
were
was
one
above the
piece,
knee boots. It
yeah.
was.
Yeah, they like got a point at the top too.
Yeah.
They were like ridiculous. They
It
were
really took until they
perfect.
like started lifting him up that I was like, oh, those are boots.
Yeah, the like set was all in pieces of these like stairs on wheels, which is a terrifying
It was
combination.
very cool.
And they moved
though.
very fast. They had these like goth vampire
Vampires.
dancers.
It was the ensemble.
Yeah, the ensemble. Like spinning actors very rapidly on stairs all over the stage as they're like going up and down the stairs, and it just like it gave me vertigo. It was like being on a roller coaster. It was too much.
There was many like actors' hand like flying to the
gripping.
rail as it
Yeah.
started moving. Felt so bad for them.
Yeah, I mean it looked fucking cool.
It was really cool.
Yeah,
The
that
stage was really
And like
cool.
that one where they had them all on it and they came out of the fog. It was like, okay,
Yeah.
we kind of know what we're doing
Yeah.
here.
There were lasers as well.
There were lasers.
Big red lasers.
Yeah, that was a fun effect. Do you think we should clarify that this is like an adaptation of Bram Stoker's Dracula? I don't think I've made that clear. And it followed it pretty well
Pretty
until
well.
the end.
Pretty
as
well.
far as
It's
I
I'm not familiar. So I was very,
Guess-
very
Get
like, I
in-
was left with a lot of questions.
Then why don't you then give a
as a
synopsis?
casual
Oh, yeah.
Give a
viewer.
synopsis of the story then, because you have no idea what was going on.
Okay, I'll try my best.
Okay.
So there's this guy, and he's got like crazy good hair. It's like greased back, and then like all like in the back it's going down. And he goes and he like gives Dracula like a deed to some property in London.
Yeah.
And like Dracula like sucks him but doesn't, and like falls in love with his wife, who Dracula thinks is like super fine. And then he like randomly appears to her in like a dream sequence kind of thing. And then it like, I don't know, it's really, really confusing at certain points, like all of the singing. Like it's hard to get. That's why I hate musicals. It's like it's hard to get to the meat of the story, you know?
That's true.
Minus the singing.
The music is not what I would call good music.
No, I can't remember
was
any of the
fun.
songs.
I don't think
but like
anybody
it
can
was
sing
good in the
along.
moment. Like there's a really hot pianist.
There was.
That like his cheekbones were excellent.
He was like 45.
He was like
Don't think
he was
Nathan.
pretty
He was like a-
old
like
when
a
he stood up. When he
28-year-old
stood up, he was
man. No.
like older.
No.
He was for
He's
sure.
older
He
than
had
you.
he had a sweater on, so it gave him the appearance of a dad bod.
It's okay.
Yeah, that's fine. That's okay. But yeah, anyways, there's like a bunch of stuff happens, and they decide they want to kill Dracula, but like the hot wife doesn't want them to, but like she does, but she doesn't. It's really weird. And then like she kills him, and that's it. It was really weird.
It's like a weird ending where it feels like this is gonna be like a romantic version of Dracula where like Mina and Dracula end up together, maybe. And then in the end, he just like totally like 180s and is like, actually, I long for death. Mina, you must kill me.
Yeah.
It's such
got,
a
like-
180 from
Yeah.
like, everything he was doing previously of like,
Mhm.
I won't come to you unless you call me. Like, I am so in love with you. I need you. We have to live together forever. And then like,
Kill me.
yeah.
It's
Just out of
That
nowhere.
was just it. Yeah.
Especially for the energy, the like just pure,
Yeah.
unbridled manic energy of the lead up
Yeah.
to this moment. Like they're just like lifting them and spinning them around in Jesus poses, and just the theatrics were insane. And then kill me.
and she does without too much thought.
Doesn't take much.
Yeah, I feel like that scene didn't have any resonance for me because like Mina's like consent and like active role in what she and Dracula were doing was so unclear throughout
Oh,
the
yeah.
entire play, where he's like, you're the only thing that keeps me alive, and she's like, same boo, and then she's like, wait, hold on. It's
Yeah.
like,
Switches.
Yeah.
a lot is going on, and so like his whether or not he's like manipulating her or hypnotizing her or if she's playing an active role, like none of that was very clear.
Yeah, I completely agree. It was totally confusing.
Yeah, and like normally intentions being clear are fine, but like consent issues, it's not great to have like a blurred line there about whether or not you want to become a vampire
Yeah.
and like drink blood off someone's chest.
Oh.
Yeah.
He brought up the best part of the
Oh my god,
play.
the best part of the musical.
One of my biggest gripes of this play is that they made Dracula so whiny. It's constant musical numbers of like, I need you so bad. I look at you and my spine tingles. It's like not Dracula in my opinion. And then all of a sudden out of nowhere, he like drinks her blood and it's her turn to drink his blood. And instead of like a wrist slit or like even his neck, he has to rip open his shirt and do a cut from his like shoulder to his other hip, and she's like sucking on his hip as everybody bursts into the room and is like, oh no. And it was literally like the sexiest part of the play, which is
Yeah, the rest of it was like so unsexy. Like there's a lot of like really tender love ballads that are just very unsexy, and then like nobody was sexy in it, and the makeup was horrible and the wigs were ridiculous, and it was just like, okay, this is a goofy, campy, not sexy version of Dracula. And then this happens and he's just like, oof, and he rips open his shirt and she's like licking his chest, and everybody in the audience was like, whoa.
And it was it was very tenacious sucking. Like,
Yeah, it was like
it was like when I catch people breastfeeding in public, kind of like you know, like the mother will look up at me with like the eyes, and then the baby's just like going, you know.
How often does that happen to you?
A lot, actually. It's happened an embarrassing number of times.
no,
Not-
the worst
not that I'm-
analogy I've ever heard.
Not that I'm like, there's nothing
Seeking
wrong.
out
Yeah,
breastfeeding
not that I'm like
moms.
looking for all you breastfeeders, but
Or is
I'll
he?
find you.
Oh my god.
Yeah, that was a weird scene. It also, to go back to the makeup, really bothered me that they didn't commit to doing the makeup down his chest if he was gonna be
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh my
shirtless.
god.
For sure.
So I was like, why is there this makeup on his? Just like scrub it off. I
Yeah,
can't.
it was
I
on his
couldn't.
face.
I couldn't do
His
it.
bronzed body, like it
His,
didn't-
that's what
Bronze?
you call bronze.
No.
It was still pretty pasty.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
It fit the vampire theme, just not
Yeah.
the
It would have been super
cake
funny though if
makeup.
he like was really tan. Like,
I will like gray nipples. Come on, like, that's gotta be like a vampire thing, you know?
They have
'cause they're
gray
dead.
nipples?
I bet. Like,
Oh, I thought you were saying he did. I was
no,
like, how?
he didn't. He did not.
Kevin was like,
I mean, we were like third row,
Yeah,
but
I was.
but
I was-
still.
Yeah.
I mean, that's, yeah.
Sorry to cut in, but like I feel like when a corpse has died, you know, like
Like their nipples.
The nipples
just-
yeah,
change
the
first,
nipples
obviously.
change.
They
Yeah,
gotta
like
go.
a squid.
You don't check a pulse.
You
You,
know?
look at the
These
nipple
squids
color.
Gray.
Like they like shrivel up, you know, and like die, like their body mass gets
Oh yeah.
like smaller.
You have been
and
looking
like
at
other
dead
things.
squids lately, haven't you?
Yeah.
You've been talking about those a lot
Yeah.
lately.
I'm not a creepy person.
Why?
Well, I like squids. A lot. Like I don't want it to take this squid tangent, but squids are my favorite animals, minus birds.
Minus birds.
Yeah.
But why are you looking at dead squids? I'm sorry.
Well, because those are like the only pictures available
Please
of like
continue.
giant squids.
Oh.
They're all dead, and it's sad. But then their footage came out earlier this year of like a giant squid in the water, and it's like it made me cry a little bit.
Big boy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I hate Splatoon though. It's a bad game.
Okay.
Good plug.
Okay, sorry.
So-
Sorry. Back to the show.
Okay, everybody has to say who their favorite character was. Anybody start.
Lucy was probably the best cast
Mhm.
and the most interesting character.
She's
I
always the
don't
most
know.
interesting character. She gets sidelined too often.
They had Lucy in, is it yellow dress?
Yeah,
I
I think
think. I don't remember,
Mhm.
but like a
Mhm.
normal Victorian dress, and then she gets like turned to the vampire and came out in this insanely awesome.
Oh my God.
You can describe
It
the
was
dress
like
better.
it was like 1970s. Like she had this like billowy white, just like cinched like empire waist, and then it was like tied up so that it showed off her thigh, and she had like knee-high like schoolgirl socks on
It was
with like Victorian shoes.
very good.
And like her hair was crazy, and she had like just blood drenched down the front of her dress, and I like gasped. I like clutched my chest, and I was like, oh my god. It was amazing. It was so perfect. And she was just like Disney princess-esque sort of voice and look and everything about her, and it was like perfect for the character, because it's funny to see like a girl like that try and eat a baby and then get her head ripped off. So
Another
spoilers.
great moment of the play that made the entire audience gasp, then burst out laughing.
yeah. Hey Gethin, what did you say when you saw her head get ripped off?
Oh shit. I think I just said oh shit.
But like really loudly.
But like really loud. It was shocking. Like they like timed it perfectly. I thought they like actually chopped this girl's head off for like 1 second.
She's dead.
Yeah, I was like, holy shit! They just
One night
like
performance.
straight up killed
Yeah,
somebody.
commitment to the
No,
art.
but it was really good. She had like this big like poofy hair cut, and the like mannequin dummy head had the same hair. It was like really good.
And the cowboy was just like,
Yeah.
Who was your favorite character, Gethin?
I really like Van Helsing.
I did too.
His energy just towards like Dracula. Oh, like there's like a musical number where they're like battling,
Mm-hmm.
and they like lift them up into the like the Jesus-esque poses. Really like that. Loved his nose as well. I don't know like
Oh,
specifically
he was
like
very
his
beautiful.
nose. He was a very beautiful man.
Had a profile on that one.
Yes,
for sure.
very good. His accent was very cool.
Yeah, he was like the only actor in the thing who could keep an accent like the entire time, like solidly, which was impressive.
He it didn't make me think of Hugh Jackman's Van Helsing at all, which is great because I hate that movie.
Nathan's,
No!
Nathan's in pain.
I'm sorry. I'm
The
sorry.
movie of my
Nathan.
childhood.
I'm sorry, Nathan.
It's like one of the few vampire movies that's PG-13 and
Oh,
you're allowed
yeah.
to watch as a child. So,
I know, but there-
which is surprising, as like all can be
Yeah, that's
considering
a
what's in that movie.
Pretty
but
violent movie.
that'll be another episode, and
Yeah.
we will get into it.
I still never
Spoilers.
managed to get through it.
You're gonna
"Ooh,
get
they're
through
gonna
one of these.
fight on the
Yeah.
podcast."
Probably.
I love that movie so much.
I know
They spent
you do.
all their money on the werewolves, and it's so good.
They're such ugly werewolves. Anyway.
So yeah, Van Helsing was the best.
I really like Van Helsing too. I didn't like Mina as the character, but I really liked the actress who
I felt
played
exactly
Mina.
the same way.
Like I thought she was really good. She had an amazing voice. Like she had really
For
good
sure.
presence and like played her character really well. But Mina is like an insufferable,
Yeah.
especially in this weird
Oh, this version was so
version
weird for
where
Mina.
she's like, "I'm alive because I love you" or whatever. And I was like, "What the fuck is happening?" And it like had an interesting like element added to it that she's the only black person in the cast and
Yeah.
a black woman. There was like the weird like Dracula going through like the pure white woman to get to the fetishized black woman.
Mhm.
And then there was also like the protection of black females by like a bunch of white men. It was just a lot of odd.
Like totally
Yeah.
unintentional, because I'm sure they
Yeah.
just cast the best person for the role, but like it did have like
created
a
some
weird
stuff.
vibe. Yeah.
Yeah, and not like, and it was interesting. Like, it's always interesting when you see like these traditional canonical texts
Mhm.
get revisited with people of color, because interesting stuff like that starts to happen. But I thought that was odd. I did like, however, how her amazing braids kind of matched Dracula's wig.
Yeah, that was pretty
notice
fun.
that? Yeah.
Didn't
Like,
really notice that. She
They were
needed
like
more
red
up.
in the bottom.
Yeah,
that was
a little
really
more
cool.
height on it would have been the perfect.
No. All the height of the wigs needs to come down.
I think I needed to go up the
No.
friggin' ponytail. Like,
I really did like Dracula's first wig so much, though.
Yeah.
'Cause I was like, ooh, a blonde Dracula. This is a choice. In his, like, house robe.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
house robe was amazing.
I want to bring up another point about Lucy that I totally
Yeah,
forgot
please
because
do.
she just had an amazing scene where she steps out onto her balcony and like spreads her arms wide open and like is baring her neck to the world like, come vampires,
Yeah.
get me. It was just such a mood.
It's very
It's-
Nathan.
It's on brand for me.
That was a lot.
As she
That's-
like describing wanting to feel her blood dissolved into his blood.
That's when Sally lost it.
Yeah, I was laughing pretty hard.
Yeah.
For all different reasons.
That was really hard.
I was like, this is ridiculous.
Yeah, and then immediately in the musical number after that, they have like they sing this song called Life After Life, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very like past the point of no return, Phantom of the Opera-y, like in a lot of ways. So it was super fun. But she lost one of her like pointy teeth in the middle of the number, and I saw it happen. I saw her like reach up and then like drop the thing on the ground, and I was like, oh my god. It just made me so nervous.
What if it was a
Yeah.
one of her real teeth?
Oh.
That'd be
It
Like
just fell
popped out. Yeah.
insane.
Scurvy
She
or
like loses all of her
or
teeth.
something.
Scurvy.
And then she gets beheaded.
Matute.
God,
This woman in
beans,
orange.
Matute.
And she gets decapitated.
Yeah.
These are the theater conditions that I imagine.
Wild.
Commonplace in America.
God, they had a really underutilized Renfield. I feel like Renfield is one of those characters where it's like some of the coolest performances in all like vampire fiction come from Renfields. Like everybody.
Is Renfield the crazy person?
Yeah. So like in the 1931 Dracula, Renfield is like the best performance in the whole movie and the most interesting character, to the point where they make Renfield like the main character instead of Jonathan Harker, whatever that fool is. He's not important. But yeah, Renfield only had 2 scenes in this, and they were very disconnected from the other scenes.
Yeah.
To the point where if they had cut Renfield out, the story would not have changed.
Mm-hmm.
So it was just like a weird choice. Like I wonder if this was like a slightly truncated version of the actual musical where they left out some stuff. Because like they don't really cover Dracula coming over on the boat and like killing everybody on the boat, and like the mechanics of the coffins and sleeping on hallowed ground and like all of that, just like, you know, mythology stuff. And then they cut Renfield like out of it so much, so it felt weird. It felt like I don't know, incomplete a little.
And they like never gave a reason to keep Quincy around
Oh
either.
my god,
Our
Quincy.
Texas
Except
friend.
that he was so hot.
I know. Okay, that's my favorite character. I'm gonna say Quincy is my favorite character. Which is like, is he in the novel?
Yeah, I
Yeah, I
think
think
there's
so.
an American. Yeah, because
Yeah.
I do remember Lucy being proposed to by.
Yeah, I
people.
remembered that.
The thing I remember is just the big ass knife.
Oh my god, the knife and the hat and the boots and they're
Hair.
what are they called, like dust coats or whatever?
yeah.
So cute.
His red coat.
Oh my god. But yeah, so
Yeah.
Quincy is like a Texan landowner who comes to England to like propose to Lucy, and then he just stays there for reasons unknown, and he helps them like fight Dracula up until the end, and then he's like the guy who takes a bullet for everybody else and dies first, which is so sad because the guy playing him was pretty hot. Yeah, he was
Really
very-
just
quite
hair.
charming.
I
Yeah,
wanna touch it.
Yeah.
he was a cute boy. It was like him and Van Helsing and the piano player.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Some cuties at this play.
A lot of hotties.
A lot of hotties in Dracula.
A lot of hotties in the audience.
Mhm.
There was like a bunch of high schoolers in the
Hotties in
audience.
the
I
audience.
forgot about that. I take that back.
Yeah, there was
Which-
also like a class of high schoolers at this thing. I think a class. They were all together. It was like 20 high schoolers all sitting together. It was weird.
It was frightening. It was frightening.
Yeah.
Gavin got in on a high school ID though.
Yeah, I used my little brother's ID to get a free ticket. Shout out to Dylan, I love you. I hope you're listening.
Okay, we're gonna have to return to our moral debate about whether or not we'd want to be vampires, because I was
Yes.
going
Oh,
to use
yes.
Dylan as my like, what if someone was eating Dylan? Would you be fine with that?
Well, no.
See,
But
so that's
like-
the idea. Like, you're eating someone else's precious little brother.
No.
You're
'Cause-
eating
'cause
someone's
no one,
Dylan.
No one
Yeah,
is
but-
as precious as
Oh my
Dylan.
God.
I know.
Oh my God.
You can't use Dylan. It's unfair.
Yeah, that's
Okay, what if you lived on a scale of like centuries and a single human life ultimately meant nothing to you?
You cannot use relative
No,
reality.
it does.
It matters to
can.
the vampire compared to
Right.
you. There's gonna be some growing pains in the beginning.
No, I just like why I understand that it's something you get used to, but why is it something you'd want to get used to? All three of you are like actively make me a vampire.
I can give you
I
like a
wanna drink
million
that
reasons.
blood.
One, you get to wear sexy outfits.
You can do that without being a vampire.
Two, you have a bunch of sexy friends.
You can
Okay,
do
never
that
mind.
without being a vampire.
Counterpoint, not
Nathan, help
in
me.
today's-
You get fangs.
Yeah.
That's
You can
fucking
also,
cool.
it's 2019. Get plastic surgery.
Counterpoint.
You
I
live-
don't know if like real fangs are cool.
Okay.
Plastic surgery cheaper than plastic surgery. That's
You
gotta
live
pay like
forever.
cost
You
like
live
a
forever.
bunch.
That's horrible. I do not understand.
What's so horrible about living forever, though? What, like,
Yeah.
I know we've explored
This
this
is
in other
not
movies
Tuck
and stuff,
Everlasting.
but like, everybody's always like, "Oh, you're so alone." But why can't
not
you
about
just
being
make another
alone.
vampire and hang out with them?
I think it's just like, don't you every day feel the horrific slog
Well.
of being alive?
Wait,
Like,
but if you
I
were
could
a
learn-
vampire, you wouldn't anymore.
Yes,
because
you would.
would be
You'd
like
be alive
so
for forever.
beautiful.
That's something for me to deal with like 1,000 years from now. We can cross that bridge of being too bored with life.
It's
But
not
I
being
think
bored. It's just like
I think ultimately the draw would be like not necessarily living forever, but not getting old.
Yeah.
For me, like, cause it's more like a
Comes back to the
like a limiting thing, you know, like not to dunk on old people, but like the older you get, the less things you can do, you know, and it's kind of like that possibility of like you can do whatever you want forever, you
Okay,
know,
this is
just
the
as long as you
first-
eat people.
argument that makes sense to me. Besides the eating people.
Okay, also, and then like, yes, you can dress like a vampire, like a sexy vampire, as a mortal, but then you would look like a fucking fool.
Nope.
You would,
No.
but if you were actually a vampire and you dressed like a sexy vampire, it's like legitimate. Like it's like a level of sexy that is not obtainable by mortals. Is my point. Like you can only be vampire sexy if you're actually a vampire.
I feel like we need to get to a deeper point where I do not find anything about vampires sexy.
Why are you on this podcast?
I don't know. I was invited. I go where Gethin goes. He's my
Yeah.
ward. Anyway, I just don't find them sexy.
Okay.
There's no monster that I find sexy.
What?
no monster, not even Frankendaddy.
Oh my god. I need to be first.
Disclaimers notice: Sally
Shot
really
in the
likes
heart.
Frankenstein.
I really do, and it's not a sexual thing. Jesus, I never thought I'd have to say that.
Sally, it's always a sexual
No,
thing.
it's not.
Like, let's be real.
What about like the fish guy from?
I don't find the
She-Hulk?
fish guy sexy. I don't find vampire sexy. I don't find any werewolf sexy. Witches maybe, but like I don't know if that's like a monster. I can get into like the witch aesthetic.
No, a witch doesn't count as a monster.
You
That's
sing
just-
from a vampire?
Yeah.
I feel like they're very distinct energies though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're
I
like
guess.
actual witches. There's not people who are like, well, there are people who are like, I'm a vampire.
It's not real.
Yeah.
Oh my
Oh.
god. Should we do a vamp eval?
Sure.
Okay. Let's talk about the vampire.
Why not? That's
Real
what we do.
quick,
No.
the vamp eval stands for
No.
vanity, ape titty, mortality, and
It
powers.
does not.
It
Yeah, it
does.
does. That was 75% right.
Starting with vanity, which is all about how these vampires look.
Dracula
The
said
elevated.
something at the beginning. Sorry to cut you off.
No, you're
again.
good.
At the beginning of the show, the main dude with the slick back hair asked if there was any mirrors in the place, and he's like, no, it shows off the vanity of man.
Ooh,
That's a good
relevant.
point.
Dracula did not have any vanity. Also, his makeup was terrible.
He looked pretty
It's
whack.
terrible.
Sorry.
I did like, again, I did really like the look at the beginning with like the long blonde wig and the like house robe sans makeup. because it was very, like, queer-coded,
Mm-hmm.
which is, like, interesting in the history of horror, because, like, a lot of times the villains and the monsters are queer-coded, which is kind of bad, because then you're, like, turning queer people into monsters. But I thought that was going to be, like, a little nod to that, and it wasn't. They just put him back in leather pants.
It was a really good robe.
But the house robe! I know Gethin and I were both,
Yeah.
like, salivating over the
that
robe.
was the one part that I could see that he was, like, somewhat vain.
Yeah,
It's like,
it
I
was,
like a
like-
good house robe.
Yeah, I was ballin'. Now we gotta get house robes. I'm gonna buy you all a house robe.
Perfect.
I'd rather
Roses
have the thigh-high boots.
Okay, I'll get Julie some house thigh-high boots.
Some house thigh-high boots to wear on the house.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was like kind of unclear whether he was supposed to care about his appearance or not, because it kind of felt like he was supposed to, but he kind of just looked so bad.
The makeup was...
It was the makeup ruined it. I think if he didn't have the makeup, we would all be like he was, you know, like this beautiful.
I don't know though. I didn't
know.
feel like his like beauty was a part of like how he seduced people, right? It wasn't how he was luring people in.
I don't know
He had
how
other
he
powers.
seduced people though. He was not a like I keep saying he's like didn't look good. It's not like I'm not condemning his like actual appearance. Like he just wasn't attractive like emotionally. Like there was nothing about his presence on stage that was like ooh hot like at all.
Yeah.
Like the way he carried himself, the way he sang, the accent he used, none of it was like very alluring or mysterious or
Yeah, which going back to my earlier point about the like fuzzy line as to like how he was doing this, it's like isn't the whole thing with vampires that they can
hypnosis.
like hypnosis and
Yeah.
they're just like naturally seductive.
Yeah, like with Lucy, it was very clear, and she
Yeah.
said it in like the lyrics of the song. She's like, "He is seducing me with hypnosis." She's like a master hypnotist. I cannot resist. She's like legitimately in love with her husband. She does not want to be a creature of the night, and Dracula has tricked her. And with Mina, it's like vague.
It was weird.
Yeah.
I didn't get him as a vampire.
Okay.
Does that cover the category? So
I
the
think
category. So
vanity.
vanity is. I don't know.
I think pretty weak overall. Appetite or appetite. I think this is another one where we just like don't get into it enough.
They seem to be constantly hungry, his little pet vampires,
Yeah.
like all the time.
Yeah, they were
Yeah.
pretty voracious. But he wasn't. He seemed to have.
So he did bring up the fact that he wants to move to London for fresh blood,
Yes.
right? That's like his motivation for leaving Transylvania, I guess.
He doesn't really follow through on that. I mean,
you see it a little bit, right? Because he starts off with the blonde white wig and sings about how this blood will rejuvenate him, and then like when we see him in London, he's got his black hair back, and I think they took his nails. Yeah, he had like insanely long nails at the beginning, and they
forgot
took
about
those
that.
off. And so I think blood does play a part, and he like claims in the end when he's like begging for his life, he doesn't want to be like a slave to this like hunger, but. Outside of that, he didn't seem to be affected by it too much.
no, there wasn't. He didn't have like a running list of victims. There wasn't a sense that like the people of London were afraid of him. That he had killed, multiple people other than Lucy. It just seemed like he showed up and he was like, "I'm trying to get to Mina by way of Lucy," and he was very single-minded in that goal, but. Which is not what his I Want song was, which is I want fresh blood. Very specific. Yeah, and then it doesn't get into any of the other sort of mechanics of what can he eat versus what can't he eat and what is the actual effect of the blood on him besides anti-aging. How long can he go?
Yeah.
Does he I don't know, like it just doesn't get into it. It just kind of
Doesn't seem to
assumes that
care at
you're
all.
familiar with the book and the rules of the book and fuck you if you don't. You know?
Yeah, I feel like it's more reliant just on the rules of vampires than even the book. Like I think you're just supposed to bring a schema with you of like things you know about vampires.
BYOS.
Yeah, bring your own schema. Yeah, which is not to say that that's a good thing because it's like, like what is happening?
Yeah. And they're like, I mean, part of the function of this podcast is realizing that there is There is no canon for rules for vampires. Vampires differ so wildly across the board, and like a edgy sort of modernized interpretation of Dracula like this one with like it's like a rock
mortality
musical that you can do whatever you want
I feel like
with.
that leads a little into appetite.
There's no saying that it's
we
gonna
talked about,
stick to the rules that Stoker
Yeah.
set
effect
down.
that the blood would
Not
have
that
on
Stoker's
it.
It
rules are
didn't
even
seem
that
like
cut
not
and
drinking
dry.
blood would kill him.
You know,
and then
so
really like
yeah,
they
it
really
just
only
leaves
talked
you in the
about,
dark a little on it.
like the stake through the heart. I mean,
Yeah.
they never actually said through the heart.
Yeah, it was like stakes and then
Bring
like
your own schema.
crucifix.
Bring that scheme.
The crucifixes were in
Crucifix
there.
and garlic were
The
mentioned,
best special
but they
effect
were
in the play.
yeah,
They
which I totally missed. I like saw the flash out of the
Yeah,
corner of my
that
eye,
was
but I was
cool.
too busy watching them like spinning around with their like
Yeah.
homoerotic energy. Like I will defeat you. You know, it was so crazy.
The special effect that Julie's talking about is Dracula like Van Helsing holds up a cross to like ward off Dracula, and Dracula like blasts the cross out of his hand. There was like a firecracker or
sparks,
something.
yeah.
Yeah, it was really cool.
It was pretty
It was
cool.
good.
But yeah, so what kills this version of the vampire?
Stakes and beheading,
Is that
I
it?
guess.
And thoughts of suicide, I guess. at the end of the play,
Oh my God.
it really just came down to like depression. Just can finish it.
Yeah,
off.
so
Yeah,
it's
in
really
the
sad.
end,
Mhm.
we're
Somebody
just
give
as
this man a
mortal.
hug.
We're just as
Yeah.
mortal as Dracula. All of
Yeah.
us.
There's no fucking reason to be a vampire.
You're-
That's your own
You're
argument.
never coming back on this
I know,
podcast.
I have my own
Jesus.
podcast where I can say whatever I want. I'm not accused of things.
I think the only other thing that they're like weak to is like garlic. They
Yeah, but
hung
it
up some
just-
garlic, but it didn't do anything.
didn't
She
do
took
anything.
it
she
down.
took
Like, take it down and take me instead.
She also called them smelly flowers.
Well,
Yeah.
they were instructed to get garlic and garlic flowers.
Okay.
If
There
you
wasn't
paid attention.
Garlic flowers in the actual. There was no
No.
prop for garlic flowers, so I was a little confused. The stinky flowers. She's like, my
Stinky.
love, go sleep in your office because there's so many stinky flowers in here. You'd be uncomfortable. And then while you're gone, I'm just going to like sacrifice my body sexually to vampires. It's good times. It's a good way to spend an evening.
Extremely good way
Yeah.
to spend the evening. For some of us.
For Nathan. Anyway.
Yeah, again, these aren't super formidable
No,
Mm-mm.
vampires.
Yeah.
they're pretty undefined.
And I mean, not to be a bummer, but going into powers, I don't think it's
know.
that much more exciting.
No.
He's
Boom cross.
Yeah, he had a
Boom
fire-
cross.
yeah.
Boom
His
cross.
power
There
was
is, like-
beating Jesus.
like Charles Xavier, like speak into your mind shit.
Mhm.
Yeah,
But that's boring.
yeah. There's like no transformation.
He
No.
did. He like put the one of the slick back hair guys to sleep.
Oh,
Remember?
yeah.
Oh,
He
yeah.
like walked through the
That's
door,
true.
and Mina's husband like goes to stop him, and he like
Waves
like
his hand.
force sleeps him or something. It was pretty cool.
It was good. It was a good fall
Yeah,
too.
it was a good.
Yeah.
It was a really
It's like, good
convincing
job,
fall
Mr.
Yeah.
Hooker.
to the ground.
Yeah.
It also killed Renfield with just like a.
Yeah, he snapped
So
Renfield's
he's an
neck.
X-Man basically.
Yeah.
Who
He's
can't be
got
invited in. That was one of the rules.
Telepathy
Against
and
powers.
telekinesis. Yes. Yes.
Supposedly, and then all of a sudden he was just in the house. but
Yeah, he
let's-
broke that rule. She did not invite him in, and he came in.
Consent.
Exactly.
I'm gonna harp on this.
He's not, at least evidenced by the musical, any stronger or faster.
Not anything
Pretty
special.
weak.
Yeah, I think overall for this play,
Pretty
these vampires
lackluster
were
vampire.
kind of whiny.
Oh
and
god, there's nothing worse than a whiny vampire.
Yeah. So we got like three for vanity, maybe like 4 for apple titty, like maybe
Oh,
work
on a
3 for the
scale.
mortality, and then the powers I feel like were a little higher on the scale. Maybe I'd
Like a
give it a
5?
5. Yeah.
yeah.
I don't really
5.
understand how your rating system works, but I can dig it.
Yeah. Well, because like if perfect 10s are like the godliest, most powerful like vampire ever,
Okay.
and
Like-
then like 1 is just like a person that drinks goat blood and wants to be a vampire. Like
Gross.
This is where
Gross,
that
gross.
would fall, because like those people exist.
Fuck.
Back to the vampires though. Weak vampires. I don't.
The
They didn't even need to be vampires.
no.
They really didn't need to be married. It could have just been a dude.
It could have just been a dude like, I want to go out with this lady.
It was a
Yeah.
good. It was a good show though.
Yes.
Like the stage, the look, the special effects were really good.
Yeah. It was an incredibly high energy, fun experience.
Yeah,
It was.
Like I cannot emphasize enough that it was so fun.
Yeah, it was like a fun watch. You know.
Yeah.
I had a blast.
Yeah.
I was dying every
Yeah.
time anything happened. It was
Yeah.
just so
That's
wild.
good.
There was a lot of
Yeah.
very good audience reactions and just
A lot of good voices too, singing voices. Like that's kind of a turnoff for me. Like in musicals, it's like when they have just like terrible, whiny like newsies voices. I hate newsies.
Ooh.
Shots fired.
But like,
That's probably going to be all for this episode. Thanks for listening. I had fun.
it looks like dawn approaches. I'm Julie.
I'm Sally.
I'm Gethin.
I'm Nathan. Remember to stay out of the sun.